You and I did a project together called Gaia's Game that we're very excited about.
And calls them into a global mystery school, an Earth school. And they're called to this adventure, and they have to find each other, and they find each other. And now their quest is to go on these missions of uncovering ancient wisdom as to how it unlocks and heals Mother Earth. You know, all before snack time, of course.
Of course. And I think that's a key message in this type of book as well, that we have a lot more influence over our outer world than what we think.
I think the arts really can save the world because of their power and potential to help us see ourselves.
The more you try to control a child, the more they're going to rebel against that control. And the more you try to tell someone, you know, and it's not only true for children, it's true for everyone. The more you try to control someone's outcome, the more you will become out of control of that outcome. Aaron Ableman, what a pleasure to have you on Think Tank. It's great to see you. Where are you today?
Oh, I'm in the Bay Area in California. Yeah, the United States of California.
You're looking like you're somewhere on the map, and I could definitely see there's like a hippie vibe going on where you are, which is there you go. Awesome. So Aaron, you are a book writer extraordinaire, especially for children's books. And you and I did a project together called Gaia's Game that we're very excited about. And tell me the inspiration behind Gaia's Game, and tell me also about your other books that you've done in the children's category.
Yeah, well, first of all, Robert, I just want to say it's such an honor to be here in this mandala of wisdom and consciousness exploration that you continue to cultivate. Really honored to be here on Think Tank. I think the best place to start is to give a little context with my personal journey. You know, I have actually had a long and winding road, and I'll do a little bit of the time-lapse version of my story today because it will help answer that question in terms of what inspired my service to the next generations, my work as a United Nations award-winning artist, storyteller, author, producer, and working across different disciplines. You know, I was actually born strangely in Chumash land down in Santa Barbara County at the Michael Douglas estate.
Really?
Yeah, I was born in Michael Douglas's basement. My father was working for him. My dad is a master organic farmer, and at the time was doing landscape work at the Douglas estate. My mother was
Was this the estate that was in LA that he had, or is it a different one?
just north of Los Angeles in Montecito.
Yeah,
So
okay.
just up one of the wealthiest districts in the country. And my mother was cooking for him. So, you know, my parents were working class. They had answered a random ad in the paper, and turned out it was this major celebrity. And interestingly, though, I always have felt that I've been kind of raised between working class and, you know, wealth of the world, somewhere between as a bridge builder. You know, I was born because my parents had vowed to have a home birth there. But at a year old, we grew up, we moved to a small farm in the Central Coast, Goleta, where the joke goes, what's the difference between Goleta and a bowl of yogurt is that one has a culture.
I used to work in Goleta.
Oh, did you really?
Yeah. When I was president of Allergan Medical, we were the largest employer in Goleta.
Oh my God! So that's a amazing connection. How funny is that? Yeah, we witnessed that entire neighborhood transform. We moved to a small farm on Fairview Avenue, just the fourth corner being the library, the public library. But it was a 12-acre farm called Fairview Gardens, and we began there. It was avocados and lemons. by the time we moved on 20 years later, it was 100 different fruits and vegetables from it was just the most incredibly biodiverse farm. And we witnessed the transformation of the city, actually. It went from nature corridor and 40 feet deep topsoil to 22 fast food restaurants in a 2-mile distance and a smart bomb factory across the street. And so I witnessed, I think, again, these conflict of worlds has been a motif in my life that, we talk about coming into embodiment to learn about duality. Well, this was definitely, many examples of that growing up. And I think the biggest and most transformative impact of my life, amongst many things, but when I was 8 years old, my mother took me to Nicaragua as a public health care nurse doing humanitarian work after 22 years of civil war. And she took me to Nicaragua, to Managua, and we shared a military cot, and we served at an orphanage every day for months. And my whole world was transformed to see the impacts of war firsthand, to see the impacts of poverty firsthand. And I think that something awakened in me in terms of my call to serve young people and to help, because my mother was, and both my parents, very present, very committed. They, and a lot of mentors throughout my life provided a kind of deep, embedded support as I was interpreting really challenging issues throughout my life. And those mentors along the way, whether they're parents or teachers or whoever they were, coaches, I think showed me that we need positive support at every step of our journey. And that never stops. Life is forever learning. But I think that was one of the biggest callings for me, was just seeing the support that my family provided and the exposure that I had growing up, and wanting to do that in my own way for young people in the world.
Math without meaning is simply information, whereas math with meaning is divine communication. My courses, The Etymology of Number and The Language of Light, guide you on a journey of self-discovery, sharpening your problem solving and pattern perceiving, as well as analytical and creative thinking, and unlocking your fullest polymathic potential. And most importantly, acquainting you with the mathematical language of the universe itself. You will never see the U inverse the same again. Register for these 2 courses, Etymology of Number and The Language of Light, at robertedwardgrant.com under the Courses tab. And join the Robert Edward Grant community chat on Orion Messenger for lively, engaging, and innovative discourse. Makes sense. Makes total sense. So what was your vision behind Gaia's Game? What was the impetus behind it?
Well, it's interesting because I mentioned that the 4th corner of this farm that I was raised on, which became an urban farm, we returned actually from Nicaragua, my mother and I, and the whole neighborhood was literally bulldozed all around us.
Wow.
With 22 fast food restaurants in a 2-mile distance. It was wild. And except for this postage stamp of greenery with the public library on the 4th corner. And we were kind of witnessed this radical transformation in our community. And so, but I would head down every day and consume stories from the library. They were like food for my soul, as the fruits and vegetables were for my body from the farm. But I would, learn of distant galaxies and sports heroes, all in this most, I think Carl Sagan spoke about the book as the most profound technology ever created by man, But to me, that was really pre-internet. As a pre-internet kid, I'm like the oldest millennial. I was very much in awe that 1,000 years ago or 400 years ago, somebody could deliver a message to me, and I can almost go right into that person's thought and into their heart as to what they were going through and wrestling with from these authors, from not just from antiquity. But I was fascinated by mythology, and ironically, sports were sort of the main interest in elementary school. And Saint Francis, played Saint Francis of Assisi on the stage. I was obsessed with Jason and the Argonauts. I studied the Trimurti, Brahma, the creator, Vishnu, the preserver, Shiva, the destroyer, this kind of holy trinity of Hindustan. And so even, being an athlete throughout my childhood, I think I was just one of those kids. And I think a lot of us growing up, we want to explore every part of the world. And so stories were a guide, mentors and teachers were a guide, and the land that we lived on was alive and full of mythology and discovery. Every stone and every tree was my teacher, and that to me is a big part of the inspiration for Gaia's game. You have 4 children from 4 corners of the world who are these 4 orphan kids. I'll show a little picture here of Priya, Musa, Taylor, and Ade. And each of them actually are on this epic adventure. They come from very different parts of the world, and they each have their own unique story, but they come together. Actually, on their 10th birthday, they receive a mysterious gift package from a bird that delivers this package. And inside, as they open it up, are ancestral talismans. There's all sorts of gifts in there, and a letter from Gaia, from Mother Earth herself, that essentially awakens them and calls them into a global mystery school, an Earth school. And they're called to this adventure, and they have to find each other, and they find each other. And now their quest is to go on these missions of uncovering ancient wisdom as to how it unlocks and heals Mother Earth, all before snack time, of course.
Of course. Well, that sounds like real life. Sounds like exactly the life that we're living in a strange sort of way. I just got back from Turkey, and that's what I feel like I was doing there too. Like going and just by visiting some of these places, changing and evolving my own consciousness, which then changes the world around me.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a key message in this type of book as well, that we have a lot more influence over our outer world than what we think.
That is the key. That is really the key. And I love that you went right to the heart of it, because, you look at so many crises in our world, whether they're at the macro level, systems level, or they're just in the personal family dynamics. So many challenges that I think we go through, we project onto others as it's, or we externalize the problem. It's them, it's you,
Right.
and that turns it makes sense, because we have these emotional bodies, and we're very very much stuck in our own perspective. So I think by storytelling, there's many different ways of approaching this, but stories do help give us, I think the arts really can save the world because of their power and potential to help us see ourselves. Just
Yeah.
in the same way that the courts would put the story of the kingdom on the stage so that they could see themselves,
Yeah.
and they can laugh at themselves without it being, oh, I'm being attacked personally. So there's
Right.
something about this kind of metaphorical gift of the arts that allows for us to see where, you know, we're out of balance or where we can grow, and it ultimately points back to your point, to our own consciousness and how, you know, how we see the world as the key to, you know, to our destiny.
I call it heartistry.
Ooh, snaps.
Yeah, it's like art and actually making artwork in all of its different forms and media is
Mm.
one of the most powerful things that you can do to heal.
Ooh, wow. And we need to make our healing fun in order for young people to want to go on these grueling journeys. You know, we need to, at least in those first steps, you know, we need to make it somehow enticing. You know, that's why I've said edutainment, you know, as a vehicle, um, because yeah, it's a lot to take on a human identity, especially in 2025. And so any encouragement that we can get along the way, and I think this idea of artistry is so beautiful. Um, what you know, when you think about your kids, and I'm going to just throw a question out there your
Sure.
way.
Hmm.
When you think about your children and even, you know, the next generations, um, in the context of what we're exploring here, especially with Gaia's game, etc. What would you say is your prayer or your wish? Like if you know, if you had that, I guess it's not an uncommon question, but you know, uh, Reverend Michael Beckwith always we're pushed by pain until pulled by a vision, right? And so this idea of like, what is your vision for your children's lives and the lives of the children in the world? I think I would love to hear that from you, Robert.
Well, I think that's a really good question. It's a deep question. And I was just with my kids last night. I just got back from Turkey. I was away for a few weeks, and the first thing I want to do is go back and see my kids because I adore them. And first of all, I want them to feel unconditionally loved. So I am always trying to, any decision that I have to make related to them, I try to do it in that context. How can they feel safe to be themselves? And I think if there's any conditionality of love, that's one of the first things that we do that creates an affront to that concept. If we say, "Oh, I really love you if you get, straight A's or whatever," and I'm lucky, my kids are all like superstar smart, and I don't even have to. If anything, I have to like tell my daughter to calm down, chill out, like relax, be a kid, and my son is going to be the exact same way. He's 6, and my daughter's 9. And then I have a much older daughter from my first marriage. Her name's Madeline. She's amazing. She grew up great. And I have she grew up exactly as I hoped that she would. So first I had kind of this vision of what they could become. And the only thing that really mattered to me was that they would be happy and balanced and know that they were loved by me.
Mm. Mm.
And that was not an easy thing to accomplish, to be honest, with my kids. Because they come with their own personalities, right? They have their own personalities. They have their own hangups. They have their own everything, and like we all do. And so I remember the day my daughter was born, and I talked about this in my TED talk. I felt this incredible pressure just holding her in my arms for the first time, that she would grow up to be everything that she needed to be. And I felt this pressure to provide immediately, like on me, like it was super heavy. And so I went straight into work and everything. I was like, okay, now I've got to basically bring home the bacon and be very successful as a father. But at the same time, I knew even then that I wanted to imagine her being happy and fulfilled, first and foremost, and that she would always know how much I loved her. And I'm happy to say, I think she does. You know, I just had a chance to see her recently, my eldest daughter, at my parents' house in Texas. We had a bit of a family reunion, and you know, we had a long talk together. We always have long talks together. I took her to trips, you know, where sometimes it was just me and her. We went to all over Asia together when she turned 18, and we
Wow.
did 3 weeks in South Korea, Japan, and China, which these are all places that I had lived, and so I wanted her to experience and see it. I took her also to Spain. I took her to Paris. I took her to London. I took her to Wimbledon. She was a tennis player. So I wanted her to have like the full on experience, and I leveraged all my friends and contacts to make that happen. So we ended up in the box seats at Wimbledon with the Royals and all that stuff. And she even got to interview Djokovic
Oh my
when
God.
he was kind of a lesser known player at the time. You know, this is back in, I mean, he was still big, but this was back in like 2010. So I gave her as many experiences as I could give her. And luckily, I've been blessed in life with resources to be able to do that. But the biggest, most important thing I gave to her was unconditional love.
Mm.
And anything she chose, I didn't care what she chose. What mattered to me was that it was something that was authentic to her and consistent with who she wanted to be and who she was.
Yeah.
And that's always an evolution, too. You know, she was part of the Mormon church and she wanted support when she decided to go become a Mormon missionary. So I gave her that support. I knew, and I went to all of her stuff. And I knew that eventually she would probably leave the Mormon church. I
Mm.
knew that because I knew what it was. I had been in it too, and I knew that it was probably not going to be consistent with her, but I wasn't going to make that choice for her. She had to
Mm.
kind of come on that on her own. And one day she did, you know, after she got married to a really wonderful man. And she decided to leave the Mormon church. And I was like, okay, you know, that's your choice. And don't feel like I wanted you to, because I was totally ambivalent to it. You know, I just had a feeling that she was too much of an independent free thinker to be able to be in that environment for very long. And that's exactly what happened. And I talked to her mother about it. Her mother was upset about it because her mother is Mormon still.
Mm. Mm.
And but you know, I've been a big supporter of her mother and of everything that she chose to do, you know, everything.
Wow.
But and I think that's really important. And so what I hope that my kids will learn, my most recent, my 3, 6, and 9 year old,
Mm.
is the same thing. I hope they'll learn that independence. I hope they'll learn that they can make their choices and that they don't need to hide who they are. The earlier they can feel comfortable being authentic with who they are, the
Wow.
earlier they can start having a really big impact in the world with that authenticity.
Mm. Full body chills. Yeah, I resonate so deeply also as a parent. Just what you're speaking to is so unbelievably important, this notion of unconditional love. And the courage that it takes as a parent to surrender to loving your child just as they are, as they
Yeah.
continue to evolve in their own unique imprint. Because you're right, they're each one of them, it's like a fingerprint. You know, we all have them, but they're all so incredibly unique. And so it really touches me just to hear you speak from a father's perspective and somebody that's really, you know, oriented toward love in that way. It's something I wish for all parents to have that experience and to be willing to, you know, really step up to the plate in that way, because it is the best thing that I think it's the best thing that's ever happened to me becoming a parent, for sure. When my daughter was born, by the way, you were talking about something, because this is my fourth book, Gaia's Game. My second book,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't expect it to become a book. But my daughter was born, and um, same thing. It was like a lightning bolt, like all the angels, all the everything, like, and it was just, you know, 365 days, 25 hours a day. You better be there, and you better do everything you like. This is your entire purpose. That level of calling as a parent, which I know is, I know that there's many different situations, and my heart goes out to all the different expressions of parenting, but my practice was presence, unconditional love, and then I wrote a letter to her every day of her first year,
Wow.
which then followed with just a simple, kind of a somatic play-based practice for new parents. And so that was welcome to earth, love letters to my child, and practices for families.
That's
And
beautiful.
what I think, I learned through that process and learn every day is the same thing that you're speaking about, which, I really, yeah, I wish for families, because it's, look, like, we all can get on the microphone, we can go out and, I performed for hundreds of thousands, millions of people around the world, and I've had a lot of impact in my work, and yet where I think the most profound kind of generational healing is happening is when the doors are closed, when it's just me and her, like, cuddling up for bedtime, and me offering a meditation or a prayer or a song, or just reading with her, or just saying, oh, I'm going to go play ball with her, when I have 1,200 things that are screaming for attention. That is the only thing that, like, when she's asking for something, I really try to drop it all. And so I think that, it's a big deal, because our families are the hardest thing that we do, but they're also, I think, the most important, and hopefully, in whatever form your family is, in terms of the listener here, you know, just that you show up with presence and unconditional love doesn't mean that we all have our own expressions of that. But I think it's a big conversation that's alive right now, as to, because our systems only reflect, uh, they only reflect the intimacy of our families and communities. And they reflect the consciousness of those beings within those units or those ecosystems, right? So I think, if we can come into harmony with ourselves first, and our service to those that we have priority for, it's going to change the world. I really think that, as above, so below, in that regard. We are the micro and macrocosm.
Totally agree. No, I absolutely agree. And I really believe that, it's so incumbent upon us as parents to let a child express who they are. And sometimes that might run as an affront to what our expectations are of them. It is what it is. There are many times that my children have chosen things that I wouldn't necessarily have wanted for them, but I still let them express themselves, I'm saying this without reservation as well,
Mhm.
because I think all you can do is teach people correct principles and then let them govern themselves. So the more you try to control a child, the more they're going to rebel against that control. And the more you try to tell someone, and it's not only true for children, it's true for everyone. The more you try to control someone's outcome, the more you will become out of control of that outcome. So the better thing to do is just to love. That's what I really truly believe. And with my kids, they're in wonderful schools and everything. It's like they're very blessed, and so there's definitely a lot of privilege there from that perspective. And I think they do understand that. And so teaching them kindness and also gratitude is so important. Um, you know, so these are the things. And also I think it's important to model the authenticity, because you know, for me, my eldest daughter watched me go from being a entrepreneur and a, you know, large corporate CEO to watching me go through this spiritual awakening as well, where I would start talking about all kinds of whacked out stuff. And then all of a sudden, next thing you know, like somehow I became, you know, somebody that people refers to as like, you know, a real Indiana Jones or something. And so she watched that whole transformation happen. And so she knew that I wasn't really my authentic self when I was a big pharma CEO.
Wow. Wow. She saw that transformation up front and center. That's so amazing. That is really, and you know, great stories require transformation. You know, that's the hero's journey, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
and I see Gaia's game as being a collective hero's journey,
It
which
absolutely is. Yeah.
I think it's powerful when who maybe it was, I think it was Thich Nhat Hanh that spoke about that the Buddha of this age of the age that we're in, that it's not one person, that it's the Sangha, right? That's what the name for the community, right? The Buddha of this age is the Sangha. And I always reinforce that, even though now it's kind of become a meme. I think it's amazing when we see how this awakening is expressing in so many different people, and even in the midst of you know, ecological crisis and political crisis, and you know, on and on and on. You know, the instabilities and collapses and every AI and you know, Age of Aquarius. It's all happening, I think, and this is my belief, is that it's happening for the collective well-being, for the because the universe is always is I really believe this, and this is maybe where the quantum conversation comes in. That I think that the quantum model is so important to continue to popularize, because it shifts the power dynamic and starts to say that our belief, I mean, Dr. Joe and all of this, you know, Dr. Joe Dispenza, etc. But just really practicing this is a different thing from like hearing it. And the practice of living into the possibility, let's just even call it a possibility, that the universe is always working out together for collective well-being. Like, what if we just tried that on as a story for humanity right now, and we began to speak into that possibility and tell stories from that possibility, and you know, create music and pop culture and education from a kind of solutionary standpoint. That is something I'm so excited about, because that to me is realizing the, you know, this new earth vision, or the restoration of our biosphere.
Oh, I couldn't agree with you more. Definitely. You know, if I think about the world doesn't happen to us, it happens for us. And when we start understanding that, it's happening for and through us every moment of every day. And that's what I try to teach my kids as well, is that, you know, some days it's like my dad used to always say, son, some days you're the windshield and some days you're the bug.
That is that is, can yeah, we have to do, there's got to be an animation about it. Like, there's got to be, yeah,
Yeah,
that's
it's like, you know,
absolutely classic.
it is what it is, you know, and
Yeah.
relax into it. It's okay. It's okay if you have failures. It's okay. You know,
Mhm.
every behind every single failure is an even bigger success
Mhm.
waiting on the other side of the fear that you had related to that failure. And I can tell you, I've experienced that multiple times in my lifetime. Every major success I ever had came on the heels of a major failure.
Wow. That's been the pattern. It's been,
Always.
is
Always.
that just the wave pattern of life,
It's the
maybe?
wave pattern of life. And so I don't get too stressed out about it anymore. It's like things are never as good as they seem, and they're never as bad as they seem either.
Yeah, that is really helpful. I think that's a really helpful reminder when you're in, especially when you're in the trenches, but also when you're riding high, you know, just to
How
hold
long you
that.
stay in that trough is directly dependent on how you perceive that trough.
Mm,
If you perceive the valley as a never-ending valley, you'll be stuck in that valley over and over and over again. If,
mm,
however, you look at it and say, oh, this was just the next thing, the next bump in the road or the speed bump or whatever to my next greater success, it changes everything, because that's
wow.
when all of your pain turns into purpose. And you start realizing that all of the suffering or the lead of your suffering and difficulty became the gold of your soul evolution.
Mm,
And I wish I'd known all this stuff when I was a kid. I used to get so worried about failing and you know, not being successful and whatever it was. And then, you know, I think one of my major motivators in life was fear of failure.
mm,
And then as soon as I let that go, then I could really start succeeding.
right. That is so powerful. I'm reminded of, you're bringing up a lot of the classics for me. The Zen story of the farmer with the,
Yeah,
so
no
the
one can know
farmers,
if it's good or bad.
you know, maybe it's a maybe. It's just,
Yeah,
and there's so
the
much.
story you're telling is the one of the farmer with the son and the horse, right? And the horse that basically ran
That's it.
away. And everyone in the town was like celebrating this incredible stallion that he had. And so they're like, wow, you're so lucky, the stallion, you have this incredible stallion. And and then one day the horse ran away and everyone said, wow, you're so unlucky. You lost the stallion, you know? And then the horse came back, right? And it's like, okay, that brought back another a mare with it, right?
Right.
And then everyone's like, okay, well, you only have one son to help you tend your farm. And the son, you know, is riding the horse one day, falls off and breaks his leg. And so they said, wow, now you've lost your only son to help you tend this farm, and you're an old man. You're like screwed now. This is so unlucky. And then the next day there's an attack in the army. The Chinese
The
army is
military.
conscribing new troops, and they come through the town and they conscript all the men of that age. And the only one they didn't conscript into the army and put them on the front lines of death was the farmer's son, because he had a broken leg. So the broken leg saved him from, you know, imminent death on the front lines. And then, you know, they all said to him, wow, you're so lucky, you know, this is so good. And then the farmer kept saying, no one can know what is good or bad. The answer is maybe.
Mm. Whoa. Yeah, I loved your version. I actually love that there's so many different versions of that. That feels like one of those archetypal stories
Mm-hmm.
that represents the science of the wave pattern, right? Like that's what I love about stories, is they put them into this kind of emotional human context, to interpret anything from the stars all the way down to just teaching our kids, you know.
Yeah, and if you teach them these correct principles, like for example, you know, one of the things I like to teach my kids as well is that, you know, every time you blame someone else for something happening in your life, you're just basically making it harder for yourself, because, you know, victimhood only begets more victimhood. And so this is not spiritual bypassing. I mean, to the person who's a victim, they think everything's spiritual bypassing. But the
Mm,
truth is, like, the man who blames others has a long way to go in his journey. The man who blames himself is only halfway there. And the man who blames no one has already arrived.
ooh,
Hi, I'm Robert Edward Grant. I invite you to explore my transformative books, Philomath and Polymath, each designed to expand your understanding of the world and ourselves. In Philomath, which means lover of learning, discover how mathematics weaves together physics, music, and prime number theory revealing the universe's interconnected nature. It's more than a book, it's an enlightening voyage. Polymath builds on Philomath's insights, exploring the genius of thinkers like Pythagoras and Da Vinci, who used geometry to revolutionize science, art, and governance. Rediscover the polymathic roots that sparked past ages of enlightenment. Join me on this journey as well. Visit robertedwardgrant.com to get your copies today. Let's foster a new era of enlightenment and collaboration for a brighter future.
Mic drop on that. Wow, I've never heard that before.
It's one of those ancient Chinese proverbs as well.
Wow. Yeah, and I love that we're tapping into the ancient wisdom of the world that is, in a way, it's these perennial philosophies that we're relearning. Every generation sort of needs to interpret them in their own unique.
We somehow forget generationally. We do. We really do. And so we have to be reminded of it.
Yeah.
Because it's easy to fall into the trap of being a victim.
Yeah.
You know,
right.
asking for someone to make up for what the wrong was done to you. It's like, dude, you know what? You fine. You may have been done wrong, but it's a UN verse. It's not a universe. And you have to realize we're not here to make better choices. We're not here to learn more judgment. We're here to learn more love. And we're here to learn why we chose the choices we did.
Wow. Yeah, and how crazy is this that you never really pull back this level of the curtain in school? Most of our schools do not broach the who we are and whose we are, the why we are, the where we're coming from, and what is our purpose. That those are not central to the vast array of what we're exposing our young people to. So maybe it's the perpetuation of the forgetting that's needed so that we can remember. I'm sure there's a grander design to it, but it definitely, the Buddhists talk about the wrong view, that it's just shifting our viewpoint. And I think in so many ways, a lot of our education system has, it's incredible. The humanity, we are capable of anything we put our mind and work toward, we are literally going to we're going to achieve. But that intention behind things and looking at the deeper why is really very important. I was thinking about something to share from the book today. There's so much, but with your permission, I just wanted to kind of throw something out there. And these are, each of our four characters in the story receive. And by the way, it dawned on me some point along the journey of us working on this, Robert, that perhaps our four characters, not only are they symbolic of these kind of quadrivium studies in terms of their passions, they kind of match these four main areas of study in the liberal arts foundation, but that they might also be, these four characters might also be representative of the four pole stars. So as we continue, our contribution to the mythologies of the world with stories like Gaia's Game, I'm very curious as to how these four characters maybe are, that they are actually representative of the four North Stars. Mm-hmm. And I think that there's something about, again, reminding children that they are embodiments of this great, the greatness of life, the allness of life, that they represent great things. Like you have a star in the sky that has your name on it. Like you are made of stars, but you're also like symbolic. So there's something really interesting. I just want to throw that out there as we continue, because at the end of the book, this is really just like the origin story of these four characters. I see them going on epic adventures around the world together and exploring these wisdom traditions and uncovering them in the most unlikely places. But as I said, they each receive a gift package from Mother Earth on their 10th birthday, delivered by a bird. And in there is a letter. And I wanted to share just something from this, because I think one of these letters really struck me as apropos to what we're speaking of. That today marks not just another year of your life, and this is addressed to beloved Priyanka. Priya is from New Delhi in India. Today marks not just another year of your life, but the growth of your journey and insight. You've always seen the world differently, transforming what others discard into creations of beauty and purpose. Now it's time to apply this vision on a grander scale. You're not alone in this. Around the world, others are turning heads into tails, and you have unknown soul siblings. Each is a piece to a great puzzle. Together, you are part of a planetary rebirth, of an ancient future, an infinite game that spans the globe. However, this letter isn't just about putting anyone on a pedestal. Oh no. It's about recognizing that the wisdom you carry is a game of discovery in all of us. You have a unique opportunity to go from frustration to delivering, from conquering to collaborating, to help lead a choice for humanity, a shift from division to unity. And it goes on. So I thought that I'd just kind of throw that one out there, because I think we're all receiving these messages right now in different ways, whether they come from our dreams or from the garden, or other places that may not be the news. And I think it's really important to remind children that, and all of us, like you said, this is a book for the child in all of us, really. But to remind us that we actually we can tune inward. We don't just have to go to the screen. Yes, the screen is infinite and amazing, and there's lots to explore there, and you're going to have that. And don't forget to tune into your inner compass, or to the things that are surrounding you, in a way that put you in your body, that put you into relationship with the larger happenings in your community and on the planet.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with you. Absolutely agree. So what other things would you like to do, after this book? What's next for you?
Oh my gosh. Well, I want to turn this into an animated TV series. I think that it deserves, I sort of did this book, with you. It was like a night hustle. It was on the side. I would love to be able to pour into it in a way that really, to explore its full potential, and expand it into the many dimensions of what's possible with a edutainment series. And I haven't said this in public, but I think that there's the possibility of obviously of some sort of video game. I think there's the possibility of doing a mythological, a soccer ball, like an eco-environmental soccer ball with the parts of the story in it. There's lots of different ways in which stories can be offered to young people. And I think with this message, it's really time. I also have a music career, and then a career in humanitarian work. And so with my music work, I have a collaboration coming out this year with Bob Marley's son, Kamani Marley, for International Peace Day in September, and some really exciting things that will be announced around this this musical collaboration. And again, my thesis is that, you know, cultural change precipitates political change, and culture itself is the most honest reflection of human consciousness if we're honest about it. So if we shift culture, we begin to transform. Well, they're mirror neurons for each other, right? Culture is consciousness in a way. And so my hope is that if we begin to propel more popular culture in whatever vertical or area, I'm inviting artists, creators, authors, you know, visionaries like yourself, mystics, to create for young people, and not just for young people, but for all of us, to create, you know, to express the new paradigm, you know, to really express so there's, I think there's a bigger opportunity for us to platform together and you know, build ecosystems of collaboration that really serve this sort of visionary perspective in the world. And it's not anything special. It's just, you know, those of us that are asking big questions and are wanting to do well for humanity and the planet, you know, at a time when we really do need to step up in whatever ways we can, you know.
And how can people find the book?
Yeah, so you can go to gaiasgame.org. That's GAISGAME.org. And you can also get the book on Robert Edward Grant website, robertedwardgrant.com. You can get it on aaronableman.com. And definitely tune in. And I really want to, you know, invite collaboration. I wanted to throw out there as well that we're looking for sponsors to gift books to low-income schools and orphanages and refugee camps. You know, there are children everywhere that need this kind of healing literacy, this unique culture that we're building, and I want to get it out into the masses.
Cool. That's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Aaron. What a great pleasure to have you on Think Tank, and thank you for all the work you're doing to help inspire kids around the world. I think this is so important, and you know, if we don't have our kids inspired, then what future do we have?
That's it. It's the foundation. It really is. Yeah, it's such an honor to collaborate with you, Robert. I love you, and I appreciate you for all that you're doing, and I'm looking forward to all the different ways in which we can create heaven on earth in ourselves first.
Thank you very much, Aaron. Have a great day.
Okay.
And we'll see you next week on Think Tank.